Hunting Horror Stories, the first story, Lost in the Hunter's Nightmare. The forest stretched out before me, an ominous sea of towering pines that seemed to swallow the daylight. My breath hung in the cold, crisp air, visible puffs of fear. I clutched my hunting rifle, feeling its cold steel against my trembling fingers. It was supposed to be a simple weekend hunting trip with friends, but now I was alone, lost, and something out there was hunting me. The afternoon had started like any other. Dave, Mark, and I had driven up to our favorite hunting cabin, a secluded refuge far from civilization. Our laughter had echoed through the woods as we unpacked our gear and cracked open a few beers. The sun had been high, and the promise of a successful hunt had hung in the air. As the afternoon waned, we split into groups, each of us venturing out into the forest in search of deer. The sounds of the woods were alive with rustling leaves and distant calls of wildlife. I had chosen a path I was familiar with, one that led to a clearing where I had spotted deer before, but as I reached the clearing, I knew something was amiss. There were no signs of deer, no tracks, no scat, nothing. The clearing lay deserted, bathed in the fading orange light of the setting sun. My unease grew as I retraced my steps, trying to find my way back to the cabin. But the woods seemed to have shifted, the familiar landmarks twisted and distorted. Panic began to creep in as the shadows lengthened, time lost its meaning as I stumbled through the dense forest. I tried to call out to Dave and Mark on my walkie-talkie, but there was nothing but static. With each step, the darkness closed in, and the woods seemed to whisper to me. Leaves rustled like sinister laughter, and unseen branches seemed to reach out, grasping at my clothing. My watch told me it was well past midnight when I stumbled upon the cabin again. It was dark inside, but I could see the faint glow of embers in the fireplace. Relief surged through me, and I burst through the door. "Guys!" I called out, but there was no response. The cabin was empty, and my voice echoed through the empty rooms. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that I was truly alone. I grabbed a flashlight and decided to make my way back to the car. I didn't understand how I'd ended up back at the cabin, but I needed to get out of the woods. As I fumbled through the dark, I heard a strange, guttural growl. My blood turned to ice. I shone my flashlight into the forest, and the beam revealed a grotesque sight. It was a creature, unlike anything I had ever seen. It crouched low to the ground, a mass of matted fur and gnarled teeth. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly, malevolent light that I didn't think, I just ran. The creature gave chase, its unnerving growls and snarls echoing through the trees. My breath was ragged, my heart threatening to burst from my chest, but I couldn't stop. The forest had become a labyrinth, each path leading me deeper into the dark heart of the woods. Time blurred, and I realized I was hopelessly lost. The creature was still out there, always just behind me. I could hear its heavy breathing, feel the hot, fetid breath on my neck. My flashlight flickered, and I could see the gnarled trees and tangled underbrush closing in. Then, a miracle. I stumbled upon a small, dilapidated cabin, its windows shattered and its door hanging by a single hinge. I burst inside, my heart pounding. I barricaded the door with a heavy plank I found in the corner and searched the cabin for any sign of safety. The place was ransacked, but there was an old shotgun in one corner. I checked it, it was loaded. I clutched it like a lifeline, my fingers trembling. The creature's growls echoed outside, but it couldn't get in, not yet. The night dragged on, each hour a torturous eternity. The creature circled the cabin, taunting me, its monstrous form silhouetted against the moonlit sky. I huddled in the corner, the shotgun aimed at the door, my eyes never leaving the shadows outside. Morning finally came, and the creature was gone. I emerged from the cabin, weak and shaken. I stumbled upon a familiar path that led me back to the hunting cabin. Dave and Mark were there, bewildered and relieved to see me. They hadn't encountered any creature and had returned to the cabin the previous evening, finding me missing. That I never spoke of the horrors I had witnessed in the woods. No one would believe me, and I wasn't even sure I believed it myself. But I knew one thing for certain, would never venture into those woods again, and the memory of that hunting trip would haunt me forever. The second story, The Hunted Hunter. The wind howled through the dense forest, chilling me to the bone as I crouched in the underbrush, clutching my hunting rifle. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the moon cast an eerie glow on the trees. It was the first night of the hunting season, and I was out here alone, chasing the thrill of the hunt. Little did I know, the thrill would soon become a nightmare that I had ventured deep into the woods, farther than I'd ever gone before, following a fresh set of tracks. They were large, like nothing I'd ever seen. My breath hung in the frigid air, and the woods felt alive with an unsettling energy. As I moved through the forest, the darkness grew more oppressive, and the silence was deafening. The hairs on my neck stood on end, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The tracks led me to a small clearing, and that's when I saw it, a massive set of antlers rising above the tall grass. My heart pounded with excitement as I raised my rifle, ready to take the shot, but then the creature turned, and I saw its eyes that glowed with an unnatural, malevolent light. Fear washed over me as I realized I was facing no ordinary deer. This was something else, something otherworldly. The creature let out a haunting, human-like scream that sent shivers down my spine. Before I could react, it charged at me with a speed and strength that defied nature. I fired my rifle, the shot echoing through the forest, but it didn't slow the creature down. It collided with me, sending me sprawling to the ground. I struggled to my feet, my body aching, but the creature was relentless. It circled me, its eyes locked on mine, and I could see a twisted intelligence in its gaze. I knew I had to get out of there, and fast. I sprinted back the way I had come, branches whipping at my face, adrenaline pumping through my veins. The creature pursued, always just a few steps behind. It seemed to know the forest better than I did, anticipating my every move. I could hear its heavy breathing and the thud of its hooves on the forest floor. I could feel it closing in. Desperation set in, and I veered off the path, hoping to lose the creature in the dense underbrush. But it was relentless, and I could hear it crashing through the trees, getting closer and closer. My heart felt like it would burst from my chest. I burst out of the trees and onto the edge of a cliff. It was a steep drop into a rocky gorge, and I had no choice but to stop. I turned to face the creature, my rifle trembling in my hands. It stood at the forest's edge, its eyes still fixed on me, its breath visible in the cold night air. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, and then, with a final scream, the creature turned and disappeared into the woods. I stood there, panting, my heart still racing, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The night was quiet now, the forest still, and I was left alone on the edge of the cliff. I didn't know what the creature was, where it came from, or why it had spared me. All I knew was that I had narrowly escaped with my life. I made my way back to the hunting cabin, shaken and in disbelief. My fellow hunters were gathered around the fire, and I couldn't find the words to explain what had transpired in the woods that night. They dismissed it as fatigue and an overactive imagination, but I knew what I had seen, what I had felt. The rest of the hunting season passed without incident, and I tried to put the encounter behind me. But the memory of those glowing eyes and that haunting scream haunted my dreams. I never ventured as deep into the woods again, always staying close to the safety of the cabin. The creature in the woods remained a mystery, a terrifying enigma that defied explanation. I often wondered if it was still out there, lurking in the darkness, waiting for its next encounter. I had escaped that night, but I knew that I had entered a world where the line between hunting and being hunted had blurred, and the thrill of the hunt would never be the same again. The last story, The Eldritch Hunt. The forest was my sanctuary, a place of solace and escape from the pressures of life. As an avid hunter, I cherished the tranquility of the woods, the anticipation of the hunt, and the thrill of the chase. But one fateful autumn, my beloved woods transformed into a realm of unspeakable horror. It began like any other hunting trip. I, along with my best friend, Mike, ventured deep into the heart of the forest, our backpacks laden with supplies and our rifles loaded with anticipation. The early morning sun filtered through the canopy of leaves, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. We set up our tree stands, nestled high above the ground, hidden among the branches. Hours passed, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, I caught sight of a magnificent buck. Its antlers were like daggers, and its coat gleamed in the fading light. My heart raced as I took aim and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, and the deer collapsed. I felt a rush of triumph, believing this was the trophy I had longed for, but as I descended from my perch and approached the fallen buck, a sense of unease overcame me. There was something peculiar about the creature. Its body was covered in strange, otherworldly symbols etched into its fur. Mike, who had joined me, shared my unease. Ignoring the unease, we decided to field dress the deer. But as I sliced into its flesh, an unearthly stench filled the air. It was a smell of rot and decay that should not have been possible in a freshly killed animal. My knife struck something hard within the deer's chest, and I uncovered a dark, twisted object that was a heart, but not like any heart I had ever seen. It was black and grotesque, with veins that pulsed with a sinister energy. I recoiled in horror, and Mike stumbled back, his face drained of color. We couldn't comprehend what we were witnessing. The symbols on the deer, the unnatural stench, the grotesque heart, it defied all logic that we decided to pack up and leave, our trophy forgotten. But as we made our way through the forest, the woods seemed different, transformed. The trees leaned menacingly, and the once familiar trails twisted and turned in confusing patterns. Panic set in as we realized we were lost, disoriented in a place we had known like the backs of our hands. Night fell, and the forest was enveloped in darkness. We stumbled through the underbrush, our flashlights flickering. Every rustle in the bushes, every snapping twig, sent shivers down our spines. The forest was alive with a malevolent energy, and we were intruders in its domain. Hours turned into an eternity, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm us. The forest seemed to close in on us, and strange, inhuman sounds echoed through the trees. Mike's voice trembled as he muttered about the Eldritch woods and stories of hunters who had vanished without a trace. That's when we saw it, a pair of luminous, predatory eyes in the darkness. They glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light, and the creature emerged. It was like nothing I had ever seen. Part deer, part monstrosity, its antlers were twisted and gnarled, and its body was covered in grotesque symbols that pulsed with an evil energy. We had stumbled into a realm of nightmares, and the creature was the guardian of this malevolent domain. Without a word, we turned and ran, the creature in pursuit. It was fast, faster than any natural beast, and its inhuman screams filled the night. I felt a searing pain in my leg as I tripped over a root, and Mike grabbed my arm, pulling me to my feet. We stumbled upon a small, dilapidated cabin, its door hanging askew. We rushed inside, barricading the entrance as the creature reached us. It let out a blood-curdling scream that rattled the cabin's timbers, and its twisted antlers scraped against the walls. Inside the cabin, we found old hunting gear and a shotgun. With trembling hands, we loaded it, knowing it might be our only defense. The creature circled the cabin, its malevolent presence felt through the walls. Hours turned into a nightmarish eternity as we huddled in the darkness. At dawn, the creature's presence faded, and we dared to venture outside. The forest seemed normal again, and we made our way back to our tree stands, which were now inexplicably close to the cabin. The hunt had transformed into a harrowing ordeal, and we knew we could never return to these woods. We left the Eldritch woods behind, our trophies forgotten, and a dark secret that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. We had ventured into a realm beyond our comprehension, where the line between hunting and being hunted had blurred, and the horrors of the hunt would forever haunt our nightmares.